Hi everyone, I'm Hextasy, and today we're going to see if we can beat a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Sword using only Pokemon shorter than 3 feet tall. This locks us out of a huge amount of evolved Pokemon since they tend to get bigger as they evolve. Shocker, I know. But let's see how well we can do with what few short kings and queens we can gather. For our starter, we can pick any of the options, but I decide to roll with Grookey and name them Brock. Brock quickly beats Hop's new Sobble to death, and we can head to Route 1 where we find Eitri the Wooloo. And at Route 2, we grab Sneezy the Seedot. Unfortunately, we won't be able to evolve either of them, but Sneezy is a monster as is and sweeps Hop's team easily. We can then head into the wild area, and we'll be limiting ourselves to one wild area encounter between gyms. For our first one, we catch Happy the Vanillite over at the Rolling Fields. We beat Hop for a third time because he doesn't learn from his mistakes, and then we can head over to Route 3 where we catch Ballin the Gossifleur, our first Pokemon that will be able to fully evolve. Speaking of evolving, Brock evolves into a Thwackey, but won't be evolving further since Rillaboom is an absolute unit at nearly 7 feet tall. Next we'll be heading into Galar Mine number 1, and ideally we'll be able to catch a Drillbur here. Nice, looks like we got ourselves a Drillbur, and we've been bamboozled. Well, looks like we'll have to settle for Roly-Coly, and let's name them Grumpy. At the end of the mine, we have our first battle with Bede, but it is Funky Monkey Friday, and our monkey goes absolutely bananas on him and quickly gets us the win. We exit the mine to Route 4, where we catch Bashful the Diglett, and after evolving Ballin into an Eldegoss, we're ready to take on Milo, the first gym leader. He starts with Gossifleur, and we bring in Happy. The game tells us how to Dynamax, but if we do that, then our Pokemon won't be short kings, so we won't be using that mechanic. We have Happy use Hail, setting up a Hailstorm before being hit by a Magical Leaf. But between our Ice Body ability healing us in the Hail, and our leftover item, we restore most of the damage we take. An Icy Wind and an Astonish takes out Gossifleur, and in comes Milo's ace, a Dynamaxed Eldegoss. It hits Happy with a Max Strike to take out half of her HP before we land an Icy Wind, lowering their speed. After healing, I figured we should be able to survive one more attack, but Eldegoss uses Max Overgrowth and kills Happy. Not the biggest loss since we wouldn't have been able to evolve them, but still. We bring Brock in next and hit Eldegoss with a Screech to cut its defense in half before we're hit by a Max Strike. But Brock handles it well, and a couple double hits is enough to take it out and win us the fight. With a gym beaten, we can head back into the wild area. At the Dappled Grove, we catch Sleepy the Budu. Then, heading to Route 5, we catch Thorin the Drifloon. Hop tries to fight us again, but once again gets dunked on. Once we're in Hulberry, we can fish up and catch Oin the Chinchou, and then we can challenge Nessa, the second gym leader. But our team is stacked with grass types, so her water gym never stood a chance, and we quickly beat her. We can then grab Gloin the Timpole at Westlake Axwell, and in Galar Mine number 2, we find Dopey the Shellos. We have another fight with Bede here, but we can spam Ghost-type moves with Thorin to score a quick win. Leaving the cave, we catch Doc the Hatena at the Motostoke outskirts, and then we can evolve Bashful into a Dugtrio, and Gloin into a Palpitoad. Next up is our first fight with Marnie. Bashful handles her Krogunk, Thorin beats her Scraggy, but then Morpeko comes in. It could go for a Bite or Spark here, and with Dugtrio's pathetic bulk, I'm not confident they could survive a Bite if it crits. So we switch out to Gloin. Morpeko goes for a Bite, taking out nearly half of Gloin's HP, and we're hit by another Bite, bringing us down to just 3 HP before our berry heals us, and we go for a mud shot and miss. So we switch out to Oin on another bite, and they also lose just under half of their HP. There's a good chance we survive one more attack, so we should be able to get off a Confuse Ray, and oh, they're dead. But honestly, that's no big deal because now we can get a safe switch into Bashful, and a single Bulldoze takes out Morpeko. We then head into the Motostoke gym, where we have the opportunity to catch a Litwick, but it gets a little too risky and we have to take it out with the Scald. But afterwards we can take on Kabu, the third gym leader. He starts with a Ninetales, and we bring in Gloin, who is immediately burned by a Will-O-Wisp before landing a critical hit Scald that just barely doesn't KO. We're then hit by a Fire Spin, which would damage us every turn, but Gloin takes out Ninetales with a Mud Shot, freeing them. Arcanine is in next, and it hits us with a Bite, causing Gloin to flinch, so they can get in a second bite, but Gloin doesn't flinch this time, and lands a Mud Shot, taking out half of Arcanine's HP and slowing it down, so we can outspeed it and finish off Arcanine with a Scald. And now, we have to deal with Kabu's Ace Centiskorch. Expecting a Bug-type move, we swap to Thorin as they Gigantamax and use Max Flutterby, which Thorin handles pretty well. They should be using a Fire-type move now, so we switch to Grumpy, but they were going for another Max Flutterby, and that is a one-hit KO. Oh well. We then bring out Thorin once more, hoping it goes for another Max Flutterby, but no such luck, and a G-Max Centiferno kills Thorin. We bring Dopey in next as Centiskorch returns to normal. It uses Coil to boost its attack, defense, and accuracy before being hit hard by an Ancient Power and losing close to half of its HP. It then uses Smokescreen to lower Dopey's accuracy, but another Ancient Power lands and Centiskorch is on the brink of death. It hits Dopey with a Bug Bite, dealing massive damage, but they survive and are able to land another Ancient Power to win us the fight. We have to head through the wild area to reach the next city, so while we're at North Lake Millock, we catch Poppy the Gloom, who is then evolved into a Bellossom, losing its poison typing since Vileplume is actually kinda big. We also evolve our other grass poison type into a Roselia, and Dopey into a Gastrodon, who just meets our height requirements at 2'11", and finally Doc evolves into a Hatrem. We then catch Ori the Yamask at Route 6, and Bashful gets to annihilate Hop's new team. We finish evolving Sleepy into a Roserade, and they proceed to one-shot Bia, the 4th gym leader's entire team. We prove to Bede that our Hatrem is superior to his before Poppy annihilates the rest of his team, and we head back to the Stony Wilderness where we catch Biffer the Impidimp, who we evolve into a Morgrem, and in the Glimwood Tangle, we try to catch a Swirlix, but after throwing balls at this stupid thing for 10 minutes, I give up and put it out of its misery. Now, because the level caps for the 5th and 4th gym are so close together, in order to avoid passing the level cap during the gym challenge, we'll be using our B team. And unfortunately, this results in the deaths of Gloin and Ballin. But thanks to their valiant losses, we can take on Opal, the 5th gym leader, with some of our best Pokemon, like Sleepy the Roserade, who one-shots Opal's entire team. Next up is our 6th Hop fight, but surprisingly, he's still garbage, and with him out of the way, we can catch Keely the Galvantula at Route 7, and Bomber the Boldore at Route 8. We can also backtrack to the wild area to catch Feely the Drillbur, but they're too high of a level to use for our fight with Gordy, the 6th gym leader. He starts with Barbaracle, and we bring in Sleepy, who does what she does best and one-shots them. Next in is Shuckle, so we switch out to Bomber on a Rock Tomb, which hardly hurts us. We're able to set up a Stealth Rock and nearly take out Shuckle with a Rock Slide, while we hardly take any damage. We go for a killing blow, and we miss. So we try again, and we miss again. One more try, and a third miss in a row. Surely we won't miss 4 times, right? Bomber, if you do not land this next rock slide, I am going to break your kneecaps. Finally. I was never great at math, but I'm pretty sure missing 4 rock slides in a row is something like 1 in 10,000 odds. Anyways, next in is Stone Journer, and we switch out to Dopey as it sets up a Stealth Rocks. It outspeeds us and uses Wonder Room to swap its low special defense with a tied normal defense. This allows it to survive a Surf from Dopey. It then hits Dopey with a Body Slam, which is not only a critical hit, but also leaves them paralyzed. Luckily, Dopey powers through paralysis and finishes off Stone Journer with one more Surf. Can't say I'm not getting lucky this fight, we did just score a crit with that Surf. Finally, we have to deal with Gordy's Gigantamax Colossal. It hits us with a Max Flare, but Dopey breaks through paralysis once again to land an Earth Power for the KO. This time with a crit that might have actually made the difference. And with that, we've won our 6th gym badge. Hop, sensing that we might actually start to be enjoying ourselves, decides to ruin that by challenging us to another battle that he promptly loses. This gives us access to Route 9, where we catch Dwalin the Marini, and then we have our second fight with Marnie to deal with. She starts with a Liepard, and we bring out Keely, who takes it out with a Bug Buzz. Next in is Toxicroak, and we hit them hard with a Thunderbolt, and they hit us just as hard with a Poison Jab. A Sucker Punch could kill Keely here, so we switch out to Bomber, but they were using another Poison Jab. Marnie heals her Toxicroak, and then Bomber has to slowly whittle its HP down with Rock Slides, but it eventually gets the KO. Scrafty is in next, and we switch out to Poppy on a Brick Break, taking a decent bit of damage, but we can then send it to the afterlife with a Moonblast. All that's left is her Morpeko. It hits us with the Torment, and we retaliate with the Moonblast, just missing out on the KO. Morpeko then hits us with a Bite, not dealing too much damage, and a Giga Drain takes it out to win us the fight. Afterwards, we can evolve Dwalin into a Toxapex and Feely into an Excadrill, which is surprisingly short, barely over 2 feet tall. But now we can take on Piers, the 7th gym leader. He opens with Scrafty, and we bring in Poppy. It hits us with a Fake Out, causing Poppy to flinch, but she can outspeed on the next turn and scores a 1-hit KO with Moonblast. Malamar is in next, and it outspeeds Poppy, hitting her with a Night Slash that brings her down to 69 HP, nice. We then land a Moonblast that brings Malamar down below half HP, but a critical hit might take out Poppy, so we swap to Feely on another Night Slash, taking out about a third of our HP. But we can then outspeed and land an X-Scissor on the next turn for the KO. Next in is Obstagoon, so we swap out to Dwalin on a Throat Chop. We use Baneful Bunker, which not only blocks Obstagoon's next attack, but also poisons it, so we can stall it out with Recovers and Baneful Bunkers, and it soon goes down. All that's left is Pierre's Skuntank. It hits us with a Sucker Punch before we land a Liquidation for decent damage, but then we swap out to Feely on another Sucker Punch. One more Sucker Punch lands, actually doing quite a bit of damage, but Feely survives, and an Earthquake takes out Skuntank to win us the fight. Right after this is our fight with the final gym leader, Raihan, and this time it's a double battle, with him starting with Flygon and Gigalith, while we bring in Bashful and Dopey. Gigalith's Sandstream ability starts a Sandstorm, and Bashful hits it hard with a high horsepower, just missing out on the KO, and Flygon lands a Breaking Swipe for decent damage all around. But it then gets annihilated by an Ice Beam from Dopey, and Gigalith closes out the turn by setting up Stealth Rocks. Sandaconda is in next, and Bashful lands another high horsepower to take out Gigalith, before Sandaconda looks at them really hard, somehow leaving them paralyzed. Dopey then lands an Ice Beam that leaves Sandaconda with less than half its HP. Duraludon is in next, and we switch out Bashful for Ori the Yamask as Duraludon is Gigantamaxed. Sandaconda uses Protect, and Duraludon hits Ori with a G-Max depletion, leaving them at just under half HP before Dopey's next Ice Beam gets blocked. Duraludon then hits Dopey with the Max Knuckle, not doing a whole lot of damage, but it also boosts their attack, and Sandaconda then lands an Earth Power that leaves Dopey with around half HP. An Ice Beam finishes off Sandaconda, and a Will-O-Wisp leaves Duraludon with a burn. Since that cuts Duraludon's attack in half, Ori should survive another attack unless it crits. Well, darn. Dopey heals up with Recover, and we bring in Poppy as Duraludon shrinks back to normal. It hits us with a Breaking Swipe, not doing much, and a Moonblast and Earth Power takes out Duraludon to win us the fight and our final badge. Now, we haven't been back to the wild area since just before the 6th gym leader, so we have 3 encounters to grab, starting with an average-sized Gourgeist at Hammerlock Hills, who we named Nori, a Cherubi at the Axew's Eye named Bofur, and at the Lake of Outrage we grab Dory the Glaceon. We then head over to Route 10 where we find Gimli the Darumaka, and then enter Winden City where we have our last few battles of the game. Starting with our final battle with Marnie. She opens with Liepard and we bring out Feely. We're outsped and hit by a Snarl, but can then land an X-Scissor for the one-hit KO. Scrafty is in next, so we swap to Dwalin as it uses Scary Face to cut our speed. We use Baneful Bunker to block a Swagger before landing a Liquidation while we're hit by another Scary Face. We go back and forth like this for a minute before Marnie uses a full restore while we use Recover, effectively resetting this matchup. We land a couple more blows before Scrafty finally lands a Swagger, doubling our attack but leaving us confused. We power through the confusion on the first turn to land a hard Liquidation, but then hit ourselves on the next. We then snap out of confusion and can use Recover to heal up before we take out Scrafty with a Poison Jab. Morpeko is in next, so we use Baneful Bunker to block an attack and poison the Mighty Bean before switching out to Bashful as Morpeko uses Spark, which we're immune to. We then use Earthquake to take out Morpeko, and next in is Toxicroak. They hit us with a Sucker Punch for half of our HP, and an Earthquake takes it out. Her final Pokemon is Grimmsnarl, so we swap back into Dwalin as she Gigantamaxes and lands a Max Starfall, not dealing a whole lot of damage. We then use Baneful Bunker, blocking most of the damage from the incoming G-Max Snooze. She lands another one and it brings Dwalin low, but a Recover brings us back above half HP, and Grimmsnarl shrinks back down. We land a Poison Jab for big damage before we switch into Poppy, who finishes it with a Sludge Bomb to win us the fight. Next up is our final battle with Hop, and as much as I'd love to, we can't just gloss over it this time. He starts with Dubwool, and we bring in Nori, who saps the HP out of Dubwool with Will-O-Wisp and Leech Seed. We're able to get Hop to waste his full restore here before we can finish off Dubwool. Next in is Corviknight, and we outspeed it to land a Will-O-Wisp before being hit by a Scary Face. It now outspeeds us and uses Swagger to confuse us. We power through confusion, but miss our Leech Seed. So we swap out to Keely on a Drill Peck, losing about a fourth of their HP. We can then outspeed and take out Corviknight with a Thunderbolt, and next in is Snorlax. We switch out to Nori on a high horsepower that they handle well, and they burn and seed Snorlax, rapidly depleting their HP. Pincurchin is in next, and we bring out Bashful as they use Curse to boost their defense, but that doesn't stop an Earthquake from scoring a one-hit KO. Inteleon is all that's left to beat, so we swap out to Nori as he Dynamaxes and lands a Max Geyser, taking out nearly half of our HP and setting up the rain. We then swap to Sneezy the Seedot, who is immediately removed from this mortal plane by a Max Darkness, but now we can bring in Dopey. They score a critical hit Max Darkness that brings Dopey down to a very nice 69 HP before we can use Recover, and after leftovers, we're almost back at max HP. So we're just going to use Recover to stall out the rain before we bring someone else in to finish off Inteleon. It goes for a Snipe Shot, and it kills Dopey. Well damn, I didn't see that one coming. But at least now we can bring in Keely, who has a Thunderbolt that should one-shot Inteleon. Unless they get outspeed and are also killed with a single Snipe Shot. So we bring in Poppy next. And they actually survive the Snipe Shot, hardly taking any damage actually. And they're able to get a kill with a single Giga Drain to win us the fight. Great. We then have to deal with the Team Macrocosmos shenanigans, and in this double battle, you can really see just how puny our Short Kings are compared to everyone else. But we quickly make it to our fight with Oleana. She starts with Frostloss, and we bring in Feely, who is outsped and hit by a Will-O-Wisp, so our Iron Head is no longer a one-hit KO. Frostlass then boosts its evasiveness with Double Team, but we land another Iron Head anyways for the KO. Melodic is in next, so we bring in Nori to do what he does best and Drain Tank Melodic to death. Salazzle is up next, but we can bring in Bashful on a Poison Gas, and they can take out the Lizard with an Earthquake on the next turn. Serena is up next, so we switch out to Dwalin, who can poison it with a Baneful Bunker before spamming Recover to earn us another KO. And finally, she has her Garbiter. We switch to Nori as it Gigantamaxes and uses Max Quake for little damage, and then we get up to our usual shenanigans. Thanks to Phantom Force, we're immune to damage half the time, so Garbiter gets no diff, and that's another win for Team Short Kings. It's back to the tournament now, and our final fight with Bede, who is now focusing on a Fairy type team that gets absolutely clowned on by Feely. Next up is our second fight with Nessa, and she starts with Golisopod, and we bring in Dwalin. Expecting it to use First Impression, we use Baneful Bunker, and it goes for Swords Dance, doubling its attack. That's not good. That is actually the worst thing that could have happened. It gets another Swords Dance off before we can land a Poison Jab for little damage. It then hits us with a Shadow Claw for big damage, and we land another Poison Jab to bring it to just over half HP. We block a Shadow Claw with a Baneful Bunker, poisoning it, and the poison damage is just enough to activate its emergency exit ability, so it switches out and in comes Barraskewda. We bring out Poppy on a Drill Run, hardly taking any damage. Ice Fang brings us below half HP, but we then land a Giga Drain for the one-hit KO and restoring most of our HP. Next in is Seaking, and it uses Aqua Ring before we land a Giga Drain, just missing out on the KO. Knowing she'll use a full restore here, we set up a Quiver Dance that lets us outspeed Seaking on the next turn and score the KO with a Giga Drain. Golisopod is back in, so we swap to Feely on a First Impression, which doesn't do too much damage. We then land a Rock Slide to take it out, and in comes Pelipper, whose Drizzle ability causes it to start raining. We bring out Dory on a Water Pulse that takes out quite a bit of our HP, but we can then use Hail to stop the rain as Pelipper sets up a Tailwind, doubling their team speed. It goes for an Air Slash, but it misses and we land a Freeze Dry for the one-hit KO. And finally, we have to deal with Dreadnought. We switch back to Feely as she Gigantamaxes and lands a Max Rockfall for very little damage. We then switch to Nori on a G-Max Stone Surge, and then to Poppy on a Max Darkness. We're up against the Tortoise, so I'm thinking we'll move first since their Tailwind went down a couple turns ago, but it turns out they're faster and uses Crunch. But Poppy just barely survives and then lands a Giga Drain to win us the fight. Next up is our second match with Bia, and she starts out with Hawlucha against our Toxapex. It keeps spamming Bounce, but we can just Baneful Bunker on the turns it lands, and it quickly goes down. Surfetch is in next, but we poison it as well, and it also goes down pretty easily. Next in is Grapple Locked, and it hits us with an Octolock, stopping us from switching and lowering our defenses every turn. So this is actually a little concerning. But Dwalin does manage to come out on top in the end after a very close battle. And B brings in her Phalanx next. We switch to Nori as they use No Retreat, boosting all of their stats, but we can just burn it with a Will-O-Wisp and slap it with a Leech Seed while she's busy setting up an endless number of bulk ups for some reason. And it also goes down, and all that's left is her Gigantamax Machamp. We outspeed it and hit it with a Leech Seed before being hit hard by a Max Flare that we barely survive. We then switch into Doc the Hetrem, who just barely avoids death from a Max Flare, but then goes down to a Max Strike on the following turn. We bring in Dwalin as Machamp shrinks back down, and now this is a free fight. Machamp's best bet is to go for a normal or fighting type move, so we can swap out to Nori, who's immune to both. Then Machamp has to go for a Fire Punch, so we swap back to Dwalin, who recovers more HP than they lose from this. We do poison Machamp here, despite that boosting its attack just to hasten its demise, and we win during the turn Gourgeist can't be hurt while using Phantom Force. Next up is our second match with Raihan, who starts out with our favorite tortoise, Torkoal, and we bring in Dwalin. This matchup would have been much easier had I taught a special move to Dwalin, but I didn't, so we're going to have a bit of a rough start here. We use Rain Dance, removing the stun that Torkoal brings, and Torkoal goes for a Solar Beam, which will now take 2 turns and have its power cut in half. We bring in Poppy, who takes very little damage, and we can land a Sludge Bomb, taking out more than a third of its HP before it lands a Body Press for about as much damage. Our second Sludge Bomb crits, which puts Torkoal into healing range as we're hit by another Body Press. They heal up before being hit by another Sludge Bomb, and then the rain ends, so we have to switch back to Dwalin, fearing a Fire type move, but it just goes for another Body Press. We get the rain back up, and we're hit by a Yawn and will fall asleep next turn. We bunk banefully on a Body Press to poison Torkoal, but we also fall asleep, so we have to tank a few attacks before we wake up and use Recover to completely nullify all the damage we took. Torkoal should go down to poison on the next turn, so we switch back into Poppy on a Yawn before Torkoal goes down. Turtonator is in next, so it's back to Dwalin on a Shell Trap, which fails. We land an Ice Beam, which freezes Turtonator, and seeing an opportunity here, we swap out to Feely, and an Earthquake takes out Turtonator. Flygon is in next, and we need a safe switch to Dory, so we decide to sacrifice Poppy. We send her out on an Earthquake, and she survives. She's now low enough for Flygon to use a random move, so there's a good chance Dory won't be hit too hard. We bring him out on a Dragon Claw, losing nearly a third of their HP, and an Earthquake brings them low, but our Citrus Berry heals them back up to half HP, and an Ice Beam is a one-hit KO. Next in is Goodra, and we're able to land 2 Ice Beams to take it out while it sets up the rain. All that's left is Duraludon, so we swap to Dwalin as they Gigantamax before landing a Max Knuckle, which hardly damages us, and we can use Baneful Bunker to protect ourselves from most of the damage from their next attack. We survive one more G-Max depletion before we can use Recover, and then swap out to Feely, who takes very little damage from a Dragon Claw, and then to Nori, who's immune to the incoming Body Press. We should be able to land a Will-O-Wisp and Leech Seed here, but Duraludon moves first and an Iron Head flinches us. A second Iron Head brings us low and also flinches, so we have to swap out. We bring in Dwalin, who does a little damage with Ice Beam, and then switch out to Feely, who does big damage with an Earthquake to score the KO and win us the fight. We then head to the Slumbering Well to catch the final Pokemon of the run, an Orbeetle named Corki, and then we can take on Chairman Rose. He starts with a Scavalier, and we bring out Nori, who outspeeds and lands a Flamethrower, but thanks to his pathetic special attack, we don't get the KO and we're hit hard by a Megahorn, but can take it out on the following turn. Berserker is in next, so we switch out to Dwalin, who's able to get a decent amount of damage off before being hit by Screech to cut their defense in half, so they have to be swapped out. Poppy is in, and a Giga Drain takes out Berserker, and in comes Ferrothorn. We don't have anything to hit it too hard, so we just go for a Moonblast, and they use Curse to boost their attack and defense. That's not good. We try to switch out to Nori to stop it before it can set up, but it goes for a Gyro Ball and Nori goes down. We have nothing else that can really handle this thing. Corki dies in their debut battle, but they were able to set up a Reflect, cutting Ferrothorn's damage just long enough for Dwalin to burn it with a Scald, cutting its attack, so we can eventually take it out after stalling for long enough for the burn to bring it into KO range. Klinkling is in next, so we switch out to Feely, who's immune to the incoming Wild Charge, and then land an Earthquake for the KO. Rose's final Pokemon is a Gigantamax Copperajah. We hit it with an Earthquake, but it isn't enough and we're hit by a Max Quake. But Feely is an absolute unit and survives. We land another Earthquake to pack up the Pachyderm and win us the fight. Next, we have to take on Eternatus, and we bring out Bashful. They're outsped and hit by a Dynamax Cannon, only surviving because of the Focus Sash. We then land an Earthquake, but Eternatus survives off of hardly any HP. Luckily, Bashful knows the priority Sucker Punch despite not having hands, and they take out Eternatus. For the raid battle portion of the fight, we just swarm the field with some of the Pokemon we couldn't evolve or never bothered to use, while the Sword Doggo goes Sicko mode and Hop sits in the corner, somehow being less useful than our severely underleveled Pokemon. Cherubi, Morgrem, and Darumaka all go down, but then Dwalin comes in to score the win, and all that's left is to take on the champion. For this fight, we'll be bringing in Bashful the Dugtrio, Dory the Glaceon, Dwalin the Toxapex, Bomber the Boldore, Poppy the Bellossom, and Sleepy the Roserade. So let's get into it. Leon starts with an Aegislash while we bring out Dugtrio. He tries to go for a King's Shield, but that just gives us a free turn to set up Stealth Rocks, and then on the next turn, we can take it out with an Earthquake. Seismitoad is in next, so we swap out to Poppy on a Liquidation, hardly taking any damage, but it then outspeeds us and hits us with a Toxic, leaving us badly poisoned. But we can then land a Giga Drain for the one-hit KO. Cinderace is in next, and it looks like this is where Poppy dies. Cinderace goes for a Pyro Ball, but it misses because he's a smelly idiot, and Poppy lands a Stun Spore, paralyzing it. We switch to Dwalin, and we're able to bring Cinderace low enough for Leon to use a full restore. We can then use Baneful Bunker to poison Cinderace, and sit back and keep ourselves healed up while Cinderace suffers from total organ failure. Next in is Haxorus, and it looks like this is where Dwalin dies. They use Earthquake, dealing massive damage, no chance at surviving a second. We go for an Ice Beam, and it freezes Haxorus. They can't move on the next turn and goes down to a second Ice Beam. Dragapult is in next, and it looks like this is where Dwalin dies. but for real this time, we have no hope of pulling off a miracle here. Thunderbolt takes out Dwalin, but thanks to a sacrifice, that gives us a free switch into Dory. Thanks to their Assault Vest, they survive Flamethrower with over half HP, and Dragapult goes down to an Ice Beam. Our final opponent of the run is Leon's Gigantamax Charizard, and it looks like this is where Dory dies. They use a super effective Max Rockfall, and Dory survives. They hit Charizard with an Ice Beam, freezing them, and Charizard can't move on the next turn. Dory lands one more Ice Beam to take out Charizard, winning us the fight and the run. Honestly, I feel a little low-key cheated by all that good luck at the end there. I was gonna have Bomber use Explosion to take out Charizard just for the giggles, and it would have been hilarious, but I guess I can't complain about this ending either. I'm genuinely surprised that we only lost one Short King in that last fight. Also, in the near future, I'm looking to branch into more than just Pokemon content, so be sure to let me know your thoughts on that. Anyways, I've been Hextasy, and thanks for watching.